I've already done two book review things, kind of art. One of the Airfix box art ones, and a consideration of Osprey artist Angus McBride, I think. So now it's time to do something else. I'll be doing more, so things will vary. But here we have a book that won't focus. It's not the camera, of course. And looking at the art in this, and considering how different it is for a start, but also how it brings things to life. So this is World War II Tank Guide by Jim Winchester, and it's very good and very interesting. You know, I would recommend it. The artwork is also interesting, and it's a very different style, and the light is not good today. Why did I pick today to do this? Hang on. Shiny paper, what a disaster. So we've got, in effect, what are technical drawings coloured in. Now I don't know who the artist is, and I'm intentionally, or artists, or team, whatever, I'm intentionally not looking into it, because one of the things about this kind of thing, sort of high graphics, is the anonymity. Because if you do a technical drawing of, let's say, a tank, then whoever does it should come out the same, shouldn't it? And then, in the case of this book, they get coloured in, which is great. And I really appreciate the work, the effort put into it. But there is that anonymity issue which I want to keep, or at least for now. I hope somebody in the comments does know and can bring all this kind of thing to light, but we'll end up going down the wrong path if I do it. So here we are. The first thing is, it's not just simply coloured in. There's weathering, there's shadow, and so on. And this, never put a picture across the fold of a page, I suppose. This has some pretty deep contrast. We'll look at this again later on. It's a strong, bold image of the Panzer II, which I think it deserves, because it really was a strong and bold tank in so many respects, a very revolutionary item. And then I'm going to be looking at things like, that's a nice image as well. There's so many in this book that are superb, but slight variation on that theme, ironically, is this one. Again, some good contrast to bring things out. Not too much weathering, but in this case, just a turn of the turret brings a little bit of life to that vehicle, the armoured car. You also have things, I mean, the shading is very important in this because it creates a bold 3D. You have that extraordinary, very dark, very black shadow, which tells us about the presence of that gun. And then just some gentle shading down this side to create that three-dimensional look. And there at the back we have the lower tones, but sticking within the technical drawing quality. Now this, the Brumbar, one of my favourites all round, but I think part of what has cemented that as a favourite is this imagery, and we'll come back to this one, might probably come back to this one again. The sort of sand beige colour is developed into a darker brown, perhaps suggesting a grizzly bear. And again, the shading is all important, and it helps pick out the mass of the superstructure. And there, the contrasting bright light. And again, we get the depth of the slope produced by that deep shadow, not so much by the shading of the whole plate. And then, again, the bold mass of this vehicle is really brought home by this almost castle-like tower structure and this enormous boxy panelling. And look, we not only have mud, we now have chipping going on. And then, remarkably, the highlighting of the wheels. That is so well done to bring out the mass of this vehicle. More chipping worthy of inspection along here, and we get Zimmermitt as well. And the depth of the wheels is brought out by subtle shades within the same browny sand colour. And as ever, now we're getting used to it, the mass and the form are brought out by the shadow. Again, a softer shadow along here, fantastically black along there. It helps us understand the form of this vehicle. This book also runs into Allied vehicles too. It goes straight into Americans, and I think this is one of the best images in the book. The amount of texture now, because this is a very plain box-like construction, no turret, not many projections here and there, and so texture is being used to bring some life to what could be very, very flat industrial surfaces, and keeps us away from accidentally thinking it might be concrete or something like that. Then some, not just texture, but some deeper weathering in here where the chaps are standing, or even in the case of the FX model, a Jeep. So now we're looking at texture as well as surface texture, as well as simple weathering, not so much shadow. It's not going to help us quite so much. And then Staghound, a really good use of colour, and within the book a very useful contrast to what we've been seeing before. This is one of the strongest, richest images in the book, and again really well done and well considered. We now get things like baggage, which isn't obscuring too much. That's one of the problems with doing baggage, is the obscuring of such things, and a lot of weathering, which helps to understand the form of this area. So just a little bit of sort of presence there. This is one of the standout images of a really impressive vehicle, it has to be said. There's the Chaffee. Not meant to be talking about this, but again, shadow and very subtle texture on the green. This is really the only one that has vegetation or any sense of the environment it's in, for whatever reason. And all of these, like all book covers and illustrations and box covers and so on, will be going through the committee phase, and people will be agreeing and disagreeing and so on. So for some reason this was deemed to be important. I haven't read this for a long time, and again I don't want to go into it because I'll start talking about details of the vehicle and so on. But it helps give the idea of the hull down quality, that you might have your vehicle just park itself within an overgrown area. It also gives us a sense of scale. So we just take reference from the leaves and the sprigs, and you get a sense of the length, the mass, the density of the vehicle, and the fact that it is actually still quite low. All helped. We wouldn't really know that without surrounding something to act as a reference point for us. So we're doing Russians there, now into the British. There's two Churchills represented. They go back as far as the Valentine. But another one that stands out is this. Again, we have everything that we've been building up to, so to speak. We've got deep shading, we've got texture, we've got weathering. But this one again is using all of that to give us a real sense of the boxy nature of that turret, because everything else is slender, low profile, and then wham, gigantic boxy turret. Shame about the fold as usual, but there is this bulldog, no jingoism intended, but this bulldog of a construction, absolutely sort of muscle appearance to the whole thing. And then we have one of the Churchills, and this again is a slight change. We have the fact that it is an assault tank, but it has all these logs ready to provide a carpet on the soft sand, and that gives the artist a chance to come up with a completely different way of displaying a tank. Plenty of filth, he hasn't forgotten the tank in favour of the logs. Plenty of filth, plenty of rust, plenty of texture, and this time not so much about the shadow, there is some, not too deep, but this time brightness and shine, and all of that across the tracks, which gives us depth without obscuring it, so it's not all just blackened as it could be. And again, this is some of the best weathering in the book. What a superb job they have done. Absolute congratulations needed for the whole book, but that in particular. They also have Japanese and Italian, which we'll come back to. So that is this book in particular. Highly recommended. I have really benefited from having that. I've read it every page, not cover to cover in one go, but every page has been thoroughly read individually. Superb book. But then there's this, which has an awful lot of the same illustrations. A quick jump so I could move on to this book and not have books falling all over the place, and I forgot one thing. Let's have a look. So, published by Silverdale Books, Denswood Road, Embury, Leicester. Copyright 2000, Amber Books. And then you go down, project editor, designer, artworks, courtesy of Orbis Publishing and Aerospace Publishing. And just worth saying, look at the contents. Massive. That is a good, for a small, light book, that's pretty good. But anyway, 2000, Orbis Publishing. Now, we're going to find something a bit different here. 60p. I got this when it came out, because I know what year it came out, I can remember, and I can remember what record I was going to buy, and I had some change and bought this as well. 60p, you can approximately multiply by 10, so this was nearly £6. And here, down here, 1975, Orbis Publishing, London, printed in the USA. So this is old. It is now held together by much sellotape. See the browning. But there it is, 1975. I'm just doing the maths of how old I was, I won't even go into it. Tanks, the Axis powers, Germany, Italy and Japan. Just to entice us, 64 coloured back pages. Remember when that was really important? Anyway, this one is fantastic. It is a really well written up book, and I'm going to go into some of the wording here. But first of all, this is our Panzer II that we saw earlier, but far smaller, and the colour is more intense, not quite overcooked, but it really gives even more solidity to that fabulous little vehicle. So here we are. I'll just bring us a bit of compare and contrast. In particular, the letter R the number 06, and even down to like mud splatters and patches on the back. They're all there. The interesting thing is, looking at this, which is really there, it shows how a little bit flatter and blander the large stretched out version is, and the colours and contrasts aren't quite so strong. So the enlarging hasn't done the images any favours. I'll have to know what size they were when produced for the book. But anyway, again, look at how the shadow produces depth, density and mass. This is one of my favourite images of anything really. It's superbly done. I feel like I am next to this tank. Now the other thing about this book is it really is lavishly illustrated. I know they all say it, but this has got so many photographs and some superb ones. And it also leads us into the level of detail that goes with it. Look at all that. You get very similar in the other book, and you do with many, but this book isn't leaving anything out. And then a nice little write-up for the illustration. I'll show you the illustration more while I read it. A Panzer Aus F, captured from 10th Panzer Division in Tunisia. So this is a specific tank. It's painted sand yellow, and the turret markings are those of a headquarters vehicle of one of the division's panzer regiments. A panzer regiment HQ had up to 5 such reconnaissance tanks. Note the F recognition features: the wide, full-length, wide, full-length driver's plate with dummy right-hand aluminium visor to confuse hostile gunners searching for a vulnerable spot. The conical rear idlers and the lack of turret stowage bin. That's nice. There's also detail about the photographs themselves. I'm off the artwork here, aren't I? But you know, there's this one. Got to find it. I have prepared, honest. Right, so we've got one of the links, and then above, in the first winter on the Russian front, Panzer II and III were still operating together as main battle tanks. The interesting Panzer II F on the right appears to have had its puny 20mm gun replaced with a more powerful weapon, possibly a captured French 37mm SA-38. The cupola is also modified. I was wondering about that, because it looks like a Panzer III gone wrong. And there we have the wheels of a Panzer II hiding in this snowy landscape. But that's the level of detail that you get just on the illustration discussion. Now this one, they do pick very illustrative images as well, because here we have the added armour is mesh, and this is one of the versions without the panel down there. But nice camouflage as well. These are great sources for camouflage. Hang on, there we go. There's the panel down the back. So this is giving us extra information bit by bit, but good camouflage, good depth again, and very helpful with these rather minimal vehicles to help see where the slopes are and so on. But that's, as I say, a nice contrast. And here is that Brumbar again, exactly the same, even down to the chips. And look at the, again, the dark, strong, rich colours. Perhaps a tiny bit overcooked there, but it just helps add to the kind of ferocious mass of the vehicle. Over here you do get some, there is a variety of vehicles, not all of them appear in both books, and this again is a very, very well managed image. We really feel the rivets on this and the almost thrown together quality of this sort of semi-botched tank, which is actually quite successful. I'm not knocking it, but you know, they've built it out of something else and fairly rapidly. Nice photographs like that on a good size. And then another one of my favourites, but again emphasising the camouflage. This one, rather than overcooked, is a tiny bit pale, but still we have the presence of the tank, and again the shadow giving us the depth. The detail is superb. The use of shadow to pick out the detail could be easily overlooked on technical drawing style, but they still keep going. And bear with me, one of the Italian tanks worth coming back to. Just front and side on this one. It'd be nice to have seen the top, but not using too much shadow this time, giving us a sense of the brilliance and reflected light of the desert environment. So they're not just going through the motions, each one is carefully considered. And again, look how long the barrel is, that's quite long, but this time the shadow is quite short to give us an idea of a very high sun. So nicely done, so cleverly worked out. So I will leave you with those. This is another bunch of illustrations and artwork that is superb and very, very well organised. As I say, I'll leave other people to work out who actually did it. But once again, thanks for watching. See you again soon with something else probably very different. Just one last thing, I thought you'd be amused. So here it is, my 1975 version, wrinkled, crinkled and held together with sellotape. So a couple of months ago when I was in a second-hand bookshop, I saw one in pristine condition and had to buy it just for, I don't know why, for my library.